Today I'm sharing the books I read in December. Hi, welcome back to Candlewick Library. I'm Cheryl and I am sharing the books I read in December. I read 2 books with my daughters in homeschool that I don't have on me right now. The first one was Martin Luther, Reformation Fire by Catherine Mackenzie. This was a really informative book. I learned a lot about him. It tells the story of his whole life and it was really interesting. It's a simple enough book, quick read. We really enjoyed it. The next one was William Bradford, Plymouth Rock, and it's part of the Heroes of History series. This one was really good too. It was a little bit more dry than the Martin Luther one, but not the whole book. And I found it very interesting, very informative. It was special to us because we have an ancestor that was on the Mayflower and in Plymouth. He was one of the ones that survived. And they also mentioned another relative that lived in a nearby area called Marymount. And it had information about him that we didn't know that was really funny because he wasn't a very well-liked man. And we didn't know that, and we didn't know the stories about him that were in the book. In December, I also finished Christian Mythmakers. This is by Roland Hine, and this overview of the major Christian mythmakers explores how they influenced and inspired one another, and identifies the symbols and emblems in their works. This covers C.S. Lewis, Tolkien, George MacDonald, G.K. Chesterton, Madeleine L'Engle, and Dante. I thought this book was really interesting, and there were parts that I really enjoyed, but there were also some parts that were books that I hadn't read, and I kind of got spoiled. So I think the best thing to do is if this book was interesting to you, I would get the books that are in it and read them, and then read his chapters. Because even the ones I'd read, I think it would have been more meaningful if I had just freshly read them. So while I did like it, I would recommend it be read with the books. For the rest of the month, I read Christmas-themed books until the very last one that I just finished today. And so the first one of those I read was The Mistletoe Countess by Pepper Basham. This is a book I've had for over a year, and I was just waiting for Christmas time to finally read it again, since I've come to really like her writing, and it sounded really cute. In this, Grace is going with her sister to meet her future brother-in-law. He has come from England, he has a title, and they have money. And so it's an arranged marriage to benefit both families. Through circumstances that happen, Grace ends up marrying him instead. I won't tell you why, because I don't want to spoil you, but the rest of the book, they are newlyweds that are basically solving a murder mystery. I really liked the story, I really liked the characters. My only problem with this that I did touch on in a previous video is that I felt like the intimacy between them was on the page too much. It still was what was considered closed door and was pretty clean. It was clean enough that I could read it again and I still enjoyed it. But I know that my daughter would really love this story and I know that she would feel so uncomfortable. So it basically has, with them being newlyweds, you're getting the intimacy of their marriage through thoughts that they both are having, through the before leading up to and afterwards sometimes. And I just felt like it would have been so much better of a story if she had left all of that out and just had a little bit of it. It took me out of the story a little bit. So for some people, you might think I'm crazy. You might be like, this is super clean. And while I agree that it is clean for the most part, when you're reading a book that has a lot of faith element in it, and then you have the amount of that, it felt a little odd. It just felt a little out of place to me. And I've read other books that have similar storylines going on that don't have as much as this had. And you still know what's going on and you still get the gist of it. So I was very disappointed. I will keep reading her books, but I probably won't continue on with this series because I'm assuming that that will continue. Next, I read book 1 and book 2 of Once Upon a Dickens Christmas by Michelle Greep. These were both really fun. The first one, 12 Days at Bleakley Manor, tells the story of a bunch of people being invited to this manor. They all have something they need or want, and they are all promised that whoever can stay for the full 12 days will get what they want. It kind of felt like a Agatha Christie meets Victorian historical fiction romance. I don't know. It was really cute. I really liked it. There were a couple of things that I didn't love, so it wasn't a perfect book, but it was really good. Book 2, A Tale of Two Hearts, follows different characters, but there is an element of the story from book 1 that is in this one as well. In this story, Mina is pretending to be married to a man she has a crush on. He doesn't know that, to help him with a family situation. And I liked this one even better. It was very cute and very fun to read at Christmas time. Then we read Christmas Carol together as a family. We do that usually every year. This year I read the Owl's Nest Publishers edition that is annotated for teens and middle grade. While we loved reading it, I think it was very well done. I loved the notes at the beginning and the end and the notes along the way that were annotated. It felt a little jarring sometimes to be reading and then have a note and go down and read it, try to figure out if this was one that my kids needed me to read to them or not. So I would say that this does not make a good read aloud version. but it would be good for anyone who's studying it on their own. Next, I read A Cross-Country Christmas by Courtney Walsh. This was a very hyped book for me. So I bought this a long time ago, waiting for Christmas time, because I've heard so many people talk about how much they love this book. I had read a book in fall by Courtney Walsh and I didn't love it. So I was a little bit hesitant about this, hoping I would like this better. I did like it better than that one, but I still didn't love it. I think it was a cute story. I liked some parts of it better than others. It definitely was very Christmassy. It felt like a Hallmark movie in a book, but I just didn't love it. And the last time I talked about her, I said that I thought I was going into a Christian book for some reason, and I don't know why. That's probably completely my fault. I was kind of surprised at some of the things in both books just because of that, because of my expectations. So if you went into it expecting a secular, clean romance, then you would be perfectly pleased. It is that. But I decided that I'm just not a huge fan of her, so this will be the last book I read of hers. Then I read a teeny little novella from Pepper Basham. This one is The Christmas Clue to Finding You. This one was also like a Hallmark movie in a book, but I liked it a lot better because it was so short and just to the point, and it had a really fun storyline. I really liked it. It wouldn't go into my top favorites, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. At that point, I wasn't sure if I was going to read any more Christmas books, but Keisha at A Book Like You with her Revive Christian Book Club had a unofficial book for December, and that is The Bridge by Karen Kingsbury. I wasn't sure if I was going to like this. They had set it up so that you were also watching the Hallmark movie. I couldn't watch it that night, but I decided I wanted to read it anyway. So I bought it and I started reading it, and I absolutely loved this book. This book had a lot of depth to it, and it was, it's a book about books. This couple owns a bookstore because they want to help people. And then there's the storyline of a young girl and a young boy, and you kind of meet them later on in the story, and then you're learning about what happened earlier in this bookstore as they remember it. The faith in this book was really great, but I also really loved the characters in the story. I teared up a lot in this book, and it was a 5 stars for me. I did not expect that. And then I watched the movie, and I liked the movie, and if I hadn't read the book, I think I would have really, really liked the movie. But there were some things that they changed. I get persnickety about that sometimes because there's changes that make sense, and then there's things that don't make sense. I didn't really care that she was a brunette instead of a blonde, but there was a character that was in the movie that shouldn't have been, and I was very confused by that. So there were just certain things that I just wished they hadn't changed or that they had done differently. But I still liked it, but I loved the book. The last book I read this month was one I got for Christmas, The Secrets Beneath by Kimberly Woodhouse. I don't remember how I heard about this book, but it was somebody on YouTube, and they talked about it being at the time of the Bone Wars with paleontology. And I had recently read Dragon Teeth by Michael Crichton, and it's all about the Bone Wars, and I found it fascinating. I really love dinosaurs, and I wanted to be a paleontologist for a while as a teenager. I really, really enjoy reading about archaeology and reading about dinosaurs. And so as soon as I knew that this book had that in it, I wanted to read it immediately. I would say that that is not as big a part of the story as I thought it was going to be. It is there the whole time, and it is a big part of the story and the characters, but there is another story that is even bigger. I don't want to spoil anybody on it because it's something I think you want to figure out as you're going along. But I really loved the characters. I thought the book was great. I've never read anything by her before, and I really liked her writing. This is going to be a series, and I'm hoping that it will go even more into the dinosaurs and the Bone War in the next book. And I think that's coming out in just a couple of months. So this I really, really liked. I thought it was a great book, and it was probably my second favorite of the month. My first favorite being The Bridge. Have you read any of these books? Did you agree with me, disagree with me? Were there ones that I didn't like as much that you loved, or there ones I loved that you didn't? Let me know what you read this December. I hope you had a great Christmas, and Happy New Year.